Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Today, we're discussing how to create a stronger, more profitable online presence. My guest is serial entrepreneur Michael Buzinski. We cover topics such as how to define a clear target market, what vanity metrics are and why they're misleading, how to double your online revenue using 3 key strategies, and more golden nuggets of advice. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. Today, we're talking about how entrepreneurs make marketing so complicated, and it doesn't have to be. You're going to get some simple strategies you can start using today or even this week if you got started on it after you listen and watch to what we have to say. My guest is Michael Buzinski. He's a decorated U.S. Air Force veteran, serial entrepreneur, digital marketing thought leader, international speaker, best-selling author. We're going to do this, and host of the top 1% podcast, the Buzzworthy Marketing Show. He's built several small businesses, 2 multi-million-dollar ventures, and marketed for over 1,200 companies. Dubbed a marketing visionary by the American Marketing Association, Michael is on a mission to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty by simplifying the digital marketing strategy process with the Rule of 26, which is also the title of his book. Thank you for making time, Michael. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Everything you could have gotten into, just real quick, why is marketing important enough to you to build a life and a business off of it?
It's funny because I think that it was my reluctance to be in the food industry as a teenager that actually pushed me into sales and marketing. So it was like 2 jobs in as a teenager. I'm like, I ain't doing this. This sucks, right? Like bussing tables and washing dishes. I'm like,
been there.
No, this is not good. So like I got into sales and marketing, and like sales, to get into marketing, most people start in sales because that's like where you can start without any experience, right? If you got a gift to gab, you can pretty much sell anything, right? Especially if you have any empathy, like you give 1 ounce of empathy, a gift to gab, you can be a salesperson, right? You can be taught, right? And I was a very teachable person, trainable person as a young age. And as you get higher into sales, you end up bleeding into marketing. And I love marketing because it is a continual learning adventure. Mm-hmm. There's so many things out there. I was almost got into like computer science and a couple of things. I'm kind of techy. And when I got into music, selling music and marketing music was actually where I started getting my chops. And it just it permeated. I was in the Air Force for 10 years and I still was doing music and marketing. And then I had buddies who would get out and they were like, hey, I'm going to start a business. I see you do all that stuff with your band. Can you help me? ... And then I just started helping. And I grew up, I went up a couple of corporate ladders before I went into the Air Force. The Air Force was actually an escape out of California, a way to do something that I believed in, and get away from corporate America. And so when I got out, I became a small business owner. I have a huge respect for small business owners and entrepreneurs because I know what the work looks like. I know how hard it is, and there's nothing out there helping us. Right. We're on our own. As much as the government wants to say they're there for us and all those other, no, we're on our own. Right. We only have us. And so I just feel this community is really one that is made up of people that are like me. We never say no. We never give up. We fight for what we believe in. And those are the people that I like to be around. So why not serve them?
Well, speaking of those people, let's dive right in. What are the biggest mistakes with marketing online that you see entrepreneurs commonly make?
The biggest thing, especially now with AI, is that we overcomplicate, right? Everybody is looking for the next big thing, right? And so they end up with a lot of tactics. And I have this saying that says, sound strategy beats blind tactics always, okay? And the problem with social media, when I started my marketing firm back in 2005, what we have today in tools for marketing was non-existent, right? We had Facebook hadn't kind of figured out what it was yet. Social media marketing hadn't kind of worked itself out. SEO, search engine optimization, was still kind of in its baby phases as far as the commercialization of that and helping small businesses. And so now we have all these shiny things. And unfortunately, people don't have a good strategy. And so marketers, and I should say really agencies, for years have overcomplicated the process as a science. And this comes from the corporate, the enterprise level of looking at marketing, where there's so many moving parts. You have to have these complexities of tracking KPIs, key performance indicators. But when you start boiling that stuff down to the small business owners, we don't need as many of those KPIs. And so what happens is that we just go, well, we need more traffic. If I don't have traffic, I can't sell anything. So we look at all these tactics that are laid out and say, hey, we can get more traffic, double your traffic, get better traffic, get targeted traffic, da, 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 da. You're like, yeah, great. I got traffic. Now what? Oh, nothing's converting. Oh, we can help you convert and we can do this and AI can do this. Da, 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 da. And then you have all these other tactics. And so now you have this whole soup bowl of tactics that you're trying to slurp down with no spoon. Right? No bib. And it's getting everywhere and you don't know what to wipe up and what to just leave on the floor because you have no strategy. And you have no strategy because you think it's more complicated than it's worth.
So let's get into the sound. What you mentioned it a few times, a sound strategy. Where does a sound strategy begin?
Sound strategy begins in understanding where you want to go. Right? If you do not have a defined target, your strategy is not going to be very strong because strategy is technically a roadmap to where you want to be. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I wrote the book, the Rule of 26, because I was trying to help business owners understand, like, where do you want to go? Well, I want to grow my business. Well, how do you want to grow your business? Right. And I kept hearing this, like, well, I want to invest in something that's going to give me return on investment. I'm like, okay, that's good. I mean, you hear that all the time, right? You probably want some return on your investment when you invest in marketing. I get it. Right. But it's like, okay, so now what? Right. It's like, okay, you want return on investment, but where are you at? Right. And so when we look at, like, what can we track right now to show what's working and what's not working? Because this is the thing. 50% of anybody's marketing on average is working, which leaves 50% not working. And unfortunately, you don't know which one it is. You don't know which 50% is working versus which 50% is not working. And so you keep it all, right? And so that's where I started going, like, how can we find KPIs that actually matter to small businesses? That's where the Rule of 26 came in. Is I started looking out there, and, like, there was places like HubSpot. They tout 129 KPIs that track for marketing. I'm like, oh, most of these are what we call vanity metrics. They're made to make the marketer look good because what they're doing doesn't actually directly affect the bottom line. And that's okay if you have a strong foundation of things that are, and that you can feed that foundation. But most people don't have that foundation. So I went on a quest to find what KPIs actually matter, what KPIs actually move the revenue needle, right? I boiled it down to 3 that had the most impact. That was unique traffic, your website conversion rate, and your average revenue per client. And I found out that, and as I'm like, okay, these are directly proportionate. So if you add 10% more unique traffic and your conversion rate and your average revenue per client stays the same, you get 10% more business, right? Like, okay, great. If I increase the amount of people I convert that come to my website by 10%, I'm getting 10% more. If I increase the average revenue per client by 10%, I get 10% more revenue. Okay, all 3 of them directly affecting that, right? The crazy thing is when you work them together, they actually leverage. So then we talked about having a goal. So I'm like, well, I could easily, guys started doing the math and everything. I'm like, easily, like, quadruple people's revenue. I could tuple it, right? Without doing 100% of any of these. But I wanted something tangible, double. Yeah. People can see double. So I'm like, okay, double. I'll reverse engineer this, double the revenue using just these 3 KPIs, 26% each. Gives me a leveraged output of not 78% more revenue, but 100% more revenue.
That's crazy.
And 26% and each one of them is not a huge behemoth of a goal, right? And so when I came across that, I was like, okay, we have something now that we can show business owners and say, hey, listen, let's focus on these 3 things right here and see the revenue go up. And that was the birth of the Rule 26.
Well, we'll get into a little bit more rule of 26, include a few things we spoke about before, but how do you know what to stop doing? If 50% is not working, how do you know? I mean, how do you not throw the baby out with the bathwater?
So we talked about that 50-50 paradox, right? 50% of your marketing is working. You just don't know which 50%. It starts with tracking, properly tracking, right? Most people don't know because they don't track. And if they do track, half the time, they're not tracking correctly. Mm-hmm. Attribution is the biggest or the most valuable KPI not KPI, but indicator of what is and what is not working that you can have in marketing. Because 50% of the things you try in marketing, even the best of us get it right 50% of the time. It's not that we don't know what we're doing. It's that we don't know what will work with each of those individual audiences, right?
Yeah.
You could sit there and go, well, I know plumbers and we generally know how to sell plumbing. Yes, you do. But when you're first going into a brand new market with a brand new brand, guess what? You're going to have to find a voice that resonates above and beyond or separately from the current competition in that market, right? So if you're not tracking everything you're doing, you don't know what to throw out because you don't know which one's working, which one's not. So the one of the things that I've just in the last 4 or 5 years, because of the fact that so much marketing for small business is now online, it is the most trackable, affordable, and targetable type of marketing you possibly invest in, right? And so I'm like, well, we're going to start there and we're going to deplete all of our options there before we go into traditional marketing, which has a harder attribution tracking facility, right? It's just harder to figure out, okay, they heard me on the radio, but did they see me on the TV? Did they see a sign? All these things that you analog can't track, right? Even if you ask them where they were. I have a real quick story. I had a client, it was a gym owner, and they were like, we were doing radio, TV, and some direct mail, online marketing, search engine optimization, the whole 9 yards, right? We had the whole thing going. They had we went from 300 paying subscribers up to 2,800 in 18 months. It was boom, big, right? Yeah. So they wanted it now that was about where they could max out was 3,000 gym memberships, right? So we're like, okay, we're getting close. Now let's start to wind down or try to optimize our marketing. So one of the things they wanted to do was ask their subscribers, their gym members, how did you hear about it? So every time somebody signed up, they gave them a little form, and they created out TV, radio, online, social media. And I'm like, hey guys, put newspaper at the bottom of that. They go, newspaper? We're not in the newspaper. Are we in the newspaper, Buzz? I'm like, no, we're not in the newspaper. And she's like, well, why would we do that? I said, trust me. So they let it run for a couple of weeks. And about a month later, we put everything in and we tallied it all up. And guess what percentage of people marked newspaper?
From the weight you put on the question, let's say 40%.
I wish it was that big, but it was actually, it was around 12 or 13%. The thing is this, we've never done a newspaper ad. What it proves is that when you make those types of surveys, they're not scientific because people don't remember, right? They just don't remember. And that's the hard part of attribution is that a lot of our business owners, they're guessing on where their clients come from. All my clients come from word of mouth and referral marketing and . Okay, where and how? What are you doing that actually increases the amount of referrals? What are you doing in your word of mouth that actually brings people in? And how long does it take for them to listen or hear your message or see your likeness before they actually reach out to you?
Exactly.
Right? Only 5% of the addressable market for any one business is actually in the buying decision at any moment. So you have to wade through 95% of the other percent. They're not, it doesn't matter what you're doing. They're not in a buying mode. 5% are. We got to find those 5%, right? And that's where diving in and really paying attention to what we call the buying cycle or the client value journey and how they become aware of you, how they become excited about you, how they become engaged, how do they subscribe to what you're talking about, how do they then move up your value ladder? How do they become promoters of your brand? All of these things have to be tracked.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, 99% of businesses don't.
Well, once they start tracking what's next in the strategy. Okay, I'm tracking. What do I, as a heads up for someone that might be watching or listening and say, okay, I'm going to start tracking. What comes after you start tracking? What do you do next in the strategy?
So when you're looking at your strategy, so now you can understand like where your numbers are coming from, and you can see it on a dashboard, and you can start seeing input versus output, right? This is where you can start looking at what is actually producing outcome, right? So say you're doing social media, right? And you have an offer specifically for your organic social media versus your paid social media, right? You can actually see that those two streams of traffic coming to your website. Mm-hmm. With proper attribution, you can also see as they come through in a good tracking system, like a CRM or something like that, you can actually see how long it takes them to make the next move, right? And you can start putting things in their way as they're moving through your client value journey, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, okay, I'm gonna put this in front of you. Oh, nope, you didn't do anything there. Let's do this in front of you. Nope, that didn't do anything there. Look at that. We got a bump. Oh, why? Okay, let's play with that. Let's do a variation of that and split test it. And now you're continually testing. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is that the science of marketing is all about testing. It's literally scientific process. So it's basically creativity meets process, right? That's why AI is so important to marketing.
Okay.
So people think that AI is going to replace marketers. No, AI is going to make great marketers better, faster, more efficient. Because AI is only going to look at what's already out there, create a variant of it and test it, create a variant and test it, create a variant and test it, right?
Yeah.
But the generative AI is a couple years out, and the quality of that to create actual unique ideas is far off. I'll probably be retired by the time that comes, hopefully. But still, the strategies for each individual, right? If everybody's using AI to come up with their strategies or their message or any of that stuff that goes along with it, then they're all spitting out the same because the AIs are coming off the same information. But human beings, we all have unique life experience. We all have a unique perspective. That's where innovation truly comes from. Optimization can be had by AI, truly. Innovation is still a human commodity that cannot be replaced.
Well, with what you just said, how does perspective play a role in innovation then?
Okay. So, that like if you have got solopreneurs, coaches, and stuff like that, a lot of us come into entrepreneurialism because we were in a space where there wasn't a lot of good innovation going on, right? Mm-hmm. And we had a great idea, innovation, right? We went into to hang our shingles for one of two reasons, if not both. One, to break free of the chains of corporate BS, right? Number two, you had an idea that the corporate yahoos wouldn't listen to, and you could do better for people, right? It's one of those two and or both, right? For me, it's always been about that. I was like, I saw a gap. Originally, I started my business as a recording studio. I wanted to be a learning recording studio. So small working bands, these are guys that are part-timers. They're not professionally trained. They have the dream of being the rock and roll star, just like I did for 15 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I get it, guys. But you know what? Most of us are not going to become rock stars, but let's make albums and demo tapes and whatever you want to call it. EPs and LPs and all that good stuff that we can show our grandchildren proudly. Right. Because I had such a bad experience in recording studios when I was in working bands. So I was like, I'm going to fix that gap. Right now, a year later, I realized that surviving off of starving musicians was a horrible business idea. So I had to pivot. What what did I pivot to? Because I was in production, I looked at small businesses, because at that time, this is early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of media production for small businesses. Is
Okay.
extremely expensive. And so I saw this gap. And I'm like, I'm going to fill that gap. I'm going to solve that problem. Right now, how can I fill a gap for a market that can't afford all the expensive stuff out there? Innovation. I had to go and solve
Oh,
that problem. How can I get this quality at a lower price that my clients, now my target market, can afford? That was mine. So better quality, the great quality at a price you can afford, not the cheapest
yeah.
quality, best quality at the price you can afford, right? You can have good, fast, and cheap. Pick two. Can't have all three.
We've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. For people watching and listening, if they're thinking, okay, I love what you said about, the 3 KPIs, tracking, bridging gaps, everything like that. If you were to tell them, if you're going to get started, maybe they're not super web savvy, but if you're going to get started to create a simplified marketing strategy that will get results, do this one thing above all else. Just start here. What would you tell them to do? Whether it's something you already said or something you haven't said yet.
Something I haven't said yet. Well, I mean, well, obviously track. If you can get your tracking down, that's great. But actual strategy, that's a tactic, right? That's a baseline where you just need that tool, okay? But it's not a strategy, is tracking your stuff. In my book, we talk about average revenue per client. And when we talk about average revenue per client, we're talking about selling to profitable clients. Not all business is good business, guys. Stop taking any business you can. I hear it all the time. Just heard it twice yesterday. New people coming into my sphere, and I'm like, who is your target market? Anybody and everybody, right? And the problem with that, and I struggled with it myself.
I think we
For
all
12
do.
years, I wanted to be everything to everyone, which made me a very poor entrepreneur. Multi-million dollar creative agency, and I wasn't even paying myself six figures. Okay. You got to get clear on who is actually making you money. We actually had a thing called the PETA discount. And when we say discount, we think of discounts like banks think of discounts, where we charge people for being a pain in the what. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just saying no to them. You see what we're doing there? When you find out who your perfectly profitable clients are, you now understand who your perfectly profitable prospects are. We call it our P3. You can do that right now by talking to your favorite clients, the clients that you're excited when they call. You're excited to open up their emails. You don't have to worry whether they're going to pay their bill or not. They're actually appreciative and listen to what you have to say and what you tell them to do, right?
Yep.
These are the people you want to be doing business with. And guess what? Like-minded people act the same. So find out what makes them tick. Find out why they love you. Find them, why do they come to you over your competition, right? You just understanding that, you will then fill the rest of your marketing message with what you've learned from your own perfectly profitable clients.
That is an awesome way to close. If people want to find you online, where's the best place to go?
They can actually, I'm giving a signed copy of the book away for free at ruleof26.com. Just pay the shipping and handling. Otherwise, my marketing firm is Buzzworthy Marketing, and you can find us at buzzworthy.biz.
Thank you again, Michael. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
And scene.
Very good. Very good.
Oh.